Tell me a little bit, where is the Paul from when you left Nigeria to where you are today? What has guided that Paul we see today?
Challenges will always come in life, and challenges are just opportunities for growth. They are privileges.
How did you muster the strength, the mental fortitude to take that step into a different direction?
So, your mindset is your most powerful asset. And if you are listening to me right now, you have all it takes. You are enough to do whatever you want to do. And I'm really excited about this one because I've seen it transform people's lives. So the world has changed. So the best known will always beat the best. If you own a business and you are not using social media right now, you are leaving money on the table. You must recognize the fact that the fundamental of your business is to get it.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever part of the world. You are welcome back to the YouREnough podcast. It's your host here, Gustav B. Achu. Do you know that over 70% of immigrants struggle to find their purpose and thrive in life, especially when they are on this side of the world, in America, in Canada? That is not because they are lazy. It's not because they are unintelligent or unmotivated. It's mostly because of the programming that has happened in their lives before moving to these parts of the world where possibilities, abundance, and opportunity exist. On this podcast, we teach people, especially immigrant people, how to invest in themselves for growth, for profits, through assets, and to build a lasting legacy. I hope you've been doing something about that with your life. If you have, good. If you have not yet, then stay on this episode because today I have a gentleman of great repute. This is a young man who has been able to live the true meaning of what it takes for an immigrant to migrate to a country like Canada and build a life of meaning and find his purpose and start delivering on that purpose. Today, I'll be talking to a gentleman who actually is a Canada based entrepreneur. He's a consultant, he's an insurance and finance expert. He helps guide people on how not only to make, but to make, multiply, preserve, and guide for future generations to come. He studied out of universities in Nigeria, came to Canada in 2020, and not too long after landing in Canada, finding his first job a few months later, he lost that job. With his wife and a baby on the way, you can imagine the confusion that set in. But today, 5 years later, he found a way not only to overcome that challenge, but to use that as a way of identifying what his own purpose is and start building on that tirelessly. Join me, welcome my friend, my brother, all the way from Canada, Paul Adeyeye. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Gustav, for having me. And how are you doing too?
Now I feel blessed today. It's just an awesome day to be alive. Hey guys, just a brief break from regular programming. You see, most human beings, if you really go deep into their heart's desire, they want three things. They want to live a life of growth and development in order to be relevant. They want to be able to build wealth and also leave behind a legacy that will last for perpetuity. In my Guarantee Your Legacy program, which is a custom designed program, I answer these three questions and more for you. I have limited availability on that program. It's an 8 weeks program whereby we meet once a week one-on-one with me. In addition to that, I'll walk through the different critical things that you need to be able to grow as a person, to be able to become relevant, to be able to impact people in order to create a legacy. And in doing that, you can also build wealth. If you already have it, I can teach you how to protect it, preserve it, so that way it lasts for perpetuity. Don't hesitate. If you would like to learn more about that program, click on the link down in the description section of this video, and I sure will see you on the inside. Let's go back to the regular life, my brother. So tell me, I know our guests are expecting this, but tell me a little bit, where is the Paul from when you left Nigeria to where you are today? What has guided that Paul we see today?
All right. So, first of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. And I love what you are doing. I love how you are inspiring people across the globe. And the name of your podcast is very, very inspiring. The name alone is inspiring. So, thank you. And I love your background.
Awesome, awesome.
Okay, so my name is Paul Adeyeye, originally from Nigeria. I know we are brothers. I moved to Canada in 2019, and back in Nigeria, I was already an established professional. Like I had built my career in Nigeria, but at some point, I just decided, myself and my wife, that there was more to explore. So we decided to move to Canada. Then we moved to Canada 2019, trying to settle down. I think in 9 months, everything was looking good, just like you mentioned, and COVID happened. So when COVID happened, for someone listening to me right now, apart from maybe those that are in Africa, because I think the impact of COVID was not as
Severe.
pronounced
Yes.
as it was in North America. So
True.
almost everything went to zero. So imagine a new person in a new country, 9 months in the country. I had gotten a job. I was excited. In fact, I had gotten a second job. I had moved to another role. And 2 months into that role, COVID struck. And the company said, you know what? At this point, I think you guys should go home. We will let you know when things open back. That was the first time for me, and it was a big blow. But really, I asked myself some questions. I was like, was it really my fault? No, it wasn't my fault. COVID was
Absolutely.
nobody's fault. But one thing I've learned is there's really nothing you can do about your environment, but there's a lot you can do about your response to your environment. So in that moment, I decided to challenge myself, went back to school, started writing my book because I was idle, started writing my
Oh,
book.
wow.
I completed that book in less than 4 months. I
Awesome.
went back to school. I studied online, transitioned fully into the tech industry. And by the time COVID was done, I was a new man. I was ready for the new world.
Completely transformed.
Yes. And I'm excited and I'm proud of the growth. And I just feel like challenges will always come in life,
Mhm.
and challenges are just opportunities for growth. They are privileges. So, and it depends on how we see things. I can't remember who asked this quote. It's talking about your perspective to life. And the
Correct.
quote is when you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes. So when COVID happened, we had two options. Either we all feel like the world is going to end, or we brace up and do something about our lives. So, and we are living in another, not really COVID time, but there's a lot going on in the world right now. And
Absolutely.
and I think this is an opportunity for someone to challenge himself and know
Yeah.
that there's really nothing you can do about a lot of things, but you can make your own personal life better.
And Paul, you make a very good point. By the way, that was a very powerful quote. When you change the way you look at something, what you are looking at changes. That was by the great Dr. Windaya, died a few
Thank
years ago. That was by
thank you.
Windaya. Very powerful quote. It's a gentleman I listen to. But you make a very good point here. You talk about the ability to make sure that despite the circumstances of your environment, you find a way to still build something out of that. Because I truly believe that what holds many people back is what they're holding on to,
Hmm.
right? Sometimes you have to let what is gone die for the new thing to regenerate. Now tell
Wow.
me, this is barely 5 years after all of that. You were able to write a book in 4 months. You were able to find new education. You were able to retrain, retool, and reskill yourself to get into a completely different industry from what you were doing coming into Canada. I want you to tell me a little bit about that mindset. How did you muster the strength, the mental fortitude to take that step into a different direction?
Yeah, that's a good one, and thank you for asking that. So I will start by another quote by Henry Ford, and that quote is, if you think you can do something, you are right. If you think you can't do it, you are also right.
100%. 100%.
So your mindset is your most powerful asset.
Your mindset is your most powerful asset. I
Yeah.
hope everyone has their notebook and their pen taking down notes. On this podcast, we don't come here to joke. We come to give people information that can transform their lives. Paul, that was a wonderful gem you just dropped.
Thank you. I had my very first experience about mindset was when I was a kid. And I think this is the first time I'll be sharing this story publicly. I
Wow.
was, I think I was 9 years old. But as a kid, I used to be asthmatic and I loved playing soccer. And you know that the Nigerian environment, the African environment can be a little bit dusty. So each time I played, I would suffer some attack in the night. My dad didn't like the fact that I was always coughing at night. He didn't like me playing football, but I really enjoyed playing football. So I would sneak out, play football. So at some point, I knew that each time I knew that I would always need to prepare myself for the asthma attack.
Mm-hmm.
So I was responsible enough. I had some medications I used to use. They call it Ventolin tablets.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ensure that there was always Ventolin tablets on my desk. So that night, I had played football. The attack came. I had one tablet left, but the tablet was also on the side with another medication. That medication was Ketrax. Ketrax is a deworming tablet.
Mm-hmm.
So because it was in the middle of the night, I didn't really open my eyes. I just picked the tablet I had access to and I
Mm-hmm.
used it and I was fine. The following morning, I woke up and I realized the Ventolin tablet was still there. So I was curious because that was the only tablet as at last night. So what tablet did I use? I used Ketrax. I used the deworming tablet and it took care of
Asthma
my
symptoms.
asthma symptoms. Now, it's
Wow.
important I mention this disclaimer here because this is a public podcast.
Correct.
Now, this is not me saying that you should not take the right medication.
Sure.
This is not me saying that Ketrax will take care of asthma. Please
No,
take
for
note.
sure.
But because I was already used to every night taking that particular medication, my mindset was prepared
To
that
receive.
once I take this medication, I would be fine.
Wow.
So I took that medication. I was fine. I don't know, I still don't understand the science behind cataracts taking care of asthma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was my first experience of how our mindset can really shape our lives.
That's a powerful one.
It's a personal experience. So going back to what you asked me, when COVID happened, I just had to take up new challenges. I'm a man, then I had a son, and my wife was also expecting. So I knew there was so much I needed to do. There were a lot of responsibilities on me. I just needed to try. So I took it upon myself. In 1 year, I was able to take new courses. I started my business, wrote my book, transitioned fully. And if you are listening to me right now, you have all it takes. You are enough to do whatever you want to do.
Hey guys, have you been wondering how you could chat with me one on one just to talk on your aspirations, your career, your business, and the things you might dream about with your life and you would really like to do with your life? I know it's been a challenge because a lot of people have been sending me inbox messages, asking me questions, and asking me how they could get to me. That has been answered for you. I've created a one on one program where you can actually book a time. You look in the link in the description, you can book a time and have a one on one conversation with me for 30 minutes for a very small fee. If you look down in the description of this video, you will find that information and go ahead and book a time and let's have a conversation.
You,
Absolutely, absolutely. That is very interesting you say that, Paul, because and thank you for sharing that very personal story, right? The power of what you just said when I listened to you talk is the fact that all these things you were able to accomplish, take a new course, write a book, start new jobs, all of that was already in you. It's not
absolutely.
like it's a new incarnation that you incantated or something and some new things were planted in you. It was already in you. What you just did most likely was certainly make a decision and then chose that you're certainly going to pursue this path, right? Interestingly enough, you are certainly a personal finance coach. But in addition to that, you run a podcast called the Thriving Immigrant Podcast, which is a very successful podcast too, helping and coaching immigrants on the best way to thrive and not only to survive. In addition to that, also, you have been voted as one of the 20 most interesting young immigrant men in Canada, which is a great recognition. I want you to just walk me a little bit. How did you get to decide that, listen, coming from where I am coming from, I don't want to be only a local hero, but I want to make global impact? And how can a young person, either sitting in Africa today, or maybe just immigrated to the West, maybe America, Canada, what can you give them as advice on how best to start seeing the world from a lens of a global impact and not only from the perspective of personal lack?
Yeah, that's a very powerful one. And there's a lot in that question.
Absolutely. Let's unpack it one at a time.
Yeah, let's do that. And thank you for mentioning the recognition. So it's the one of the most top 20 most outstanding black men in Canada.
Correct.
And so back to your question, we live in a very interesting time. And I'm so glad for everyone or for anyone listening to me right now. It's a huge privilege that you are alive at this time. Whether you are
Absolutely.
listening to me from Africa or from Asia or from North America, you've got an amazing opportunity to do whatever you want to do and put yourself on a global scale because we have technology that we can leverage. So, back to your question. When I moved to Canada, I knew that Canada would give me wings to fly. It's now left to me to decide my altitude. Now, when you find yourself in this part of the world and you've discovered your I would call it your passion and maybe your purpose,
Mhm.
you know that it is important for you to maximize your passion and your purpose so that you can make life better for people coming behind. Now, as a black person in Canada, Canada is a very immigrant friendly country, but there was a need for, I saw a need for me to start putting myself out there just to educate my community. And
Mhm.
by doing that, there was also a need for me to educate myself because you can't teach what you don't know.
Absolutely.
So it came out of passion for humanity. So I started sharing things online because I saw that most people, when they come to Canada, they are just very excited about the good life. They don't
Mhm.
pay attention to some things. And before you know it, they start making mistakes. And I made some mistakes too. So, in a bid to
Absolutely.
prevent people from making those mistakes, I started sharing the little things that I knew then. But by doing that, I began to learn more. So I had more. Every time I shared something new, it was an opportunity for me to learn something new. So I was doing that to educate my community, to empower my community, and it's been an amazing experience. I use social media very well because with social media now you have a voice.
Absolutely.
You have a voice, and someone from the most remote place in the world, as long as you have access to the internet, you can make your voice heard.
Fantastic. And I'm glad you talk about in the process of creating global impact, you talk about social media, the power of social media. And that is a very huge topic on its own. That's even a
Right.
podcast for another day. But I want us to touch a little bit of that, especially as it pertains to to the immigrant community, right? Not only in the West, but back on the continent in the motherland. How can people today leverage social media for business and not only for entertainment? Because as you and me know, right, the poor are entertained, the rich are educated. And one
Mhm.
of the trends I see today, and most likely you might have observed that, is that for a lot of us, Africans and African immigrants, we consider social media as platforms for entertainment. I say this with all due respect to anybody who is involved in entertaining people. Entertainment is great, but great nations are not built on entertainment. If great nations were built on entertainment, Congo would be a great nation. Nobody can entertain like Congolese. They have the best music. You can dance till
Best
morning,
Makosa.
right? If entertainment could create great nations, Hollywood will be producing the highest GDP in America compared to all industries, but it is
Mm.
not. So that is important, but social media should be used for business. As somebody who masters social media, expert on Instagram, talk to people today. How can they leverage social media strategically for business?
Yeah, so another beautiful one. And I'm really excited about this one because I've seen it transform people's lives. Social media is a powerful tool that everybody should be excited about. As I speak to you right now, there are millions or billions of dollars changing hands across the globe just because somebody somewhere was able to challenge himself and use social media to promote himself.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you mentioned, when you look at some of the things that we see on social media, the entertainment and all that, you see the kind of followers they have, the kind of traction they gain. You
Correct.
should ask yourself, like, if something this intangible, well, quote and unquote, intangible,
Mm-hmm.
can make such huge follows and traction, why can't I do something for my business? And the world is changing. It's changing very rapidly, very rapidly. A lot. We are going to be talking about 2024, 2023 in 5 years' time, and it will look like we are talking about 20 years ago.
Yes.
So if you own a business and you are not using social media right now, you are leaving money on the table. And if you are thinking of starting a business, it's very important to incorporate social media into your
Mm-hmm.
marketing tools or marketing guide. And I know that can be overwhelming. So you don't necessarily need to be on all social media channels. You need to, first of all, the first thing you need to do is to identify the people you want to serve.
Mm-hmm.
There's something called customer avatar. So if you have
Correct.
an existing business or you have a service and you believe that the kind of service you have, there's no geographical limitation to that service,
Mm-hmm.
even if there is a geographical limitation, you still need to be online because the people that are currently living in this world, they are not going for traditional inquiries. If they want to get anything, they use Google.
Yes.
If they want to get anything, they use TikTok. So when I
ChatGPT
moved,
today.
they
True.
use ChatGPT. When I moved to my current place, I have two boys, and I was looking
Oh,
for,
that's nice.
thank you, I was looking for a barber shop. I just Googled. Guess what? The closest one I found is about 15 minutes to my house. So I continued to use that barber shop. I wasn't so satisfied with their service, but that was the only thing I found. Until
Mm-hmm.
6 months after, when I discovered one that is 2 minutes close to me.
Wow.
And I tried it and it became the best. But he lost a lot of money because he wasn't online.
Yes.
If he had registered his business on Google, when I Googled
It
close,
would have come up first.
it would have come up first because it's the nearest to me.
What a tangible example, Paul. What an incredible everyday example of how powerful it is to have your business visible.
Absolutely.
Yes, because I really believe that a lot of business people fail not because they don't have a good business or a good product, but the people who need you don't know that you
No.
exist.
And that's very
Awareness is
frustrating.
so powerful. In
Awareness
fact,
is
that is the
powerful.
beginning of everything, right? You didn't even know that you are driving 15 minutes out. Meanwhile, there was somebody in a walking distance, 2 minutes away
Two
from your home
minutes.
that you could go. Imagine for 6 months they lost revenue,
Yeah.
cutting your son's hair and your hair 3 times every month.
Imagine.
That's a lot of
Imagine.
revenue.
So the world has changed. So the best known will always beat the best.
The best known will
We
always beat
always
the
beat the
best.
best.
Hang on, let me take that down, please. The best known will always beat The best. Oh, that is a good one. So you can have the best product on earth, but as long as I'm a competitor and people know me more, I'll always win you.
You will always win. You
It
will
makes a lot
always
of
win.
sense. It
That's the
makes a lot of
reason
sense.
why. That's the reason why that guy continued to get money from me for 6 months and not offering me the best service because he was known.
Yes, yes, yes. Now talking about service, that is something which is very powerful and which has also been a point of weakness, especially in our African immigrant communities, right?
Hmm.
The whole concept of service, customer service, and being able to compete at the global level, I believe, is still at a challenge. But I want to say this, right? There is a Jewish tradition, and it's embedded in a Yiddish word called fagging.
Hmm.
What fagging means and what that tradition really postulates is it encourages Jews to support their brother or sister's business even when the service is imperfect, even when the business is imperfect, until the business becomes successful. So, what that means is that yes, we have a lot of challenges with customer service in our communities, but it doesn't mean we are the only ones. How can we leverage the concept of fagging to incorporate into our own community businesses to make sure that customers who come to African businesses can support them and be able to encourage them until they become great businesses? Talk to me about that.
That's a very good one. And I'm excited that you're talking about the Jewish because that community is the wealthiest community
On
in
earth.
on earth in
Correct.
America. And there are not many. So they are quality people, not quantity.
Absolutely.
Apart from the fact that they patronize themselves, they also know how to build generational wealth. Now, in our community, one of the things that we suffer from is what I call the crab mentality.
Mhm.
We are very competitive. We are not collaborative enough. So it's one thing to be competitive, it's another thing to be collaborative. And one
Mhm.
of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to compete with someone you should be collaborating with.
Absolutely.
It's going to wear you out. Now, what do I mean by crab mentality? If you put crabs in a basket
Mhm.
and let's say you put 30 crabs in a basket, the basket is not covered, and you want them to escape, you know what's going to happen?
Mm.
As each of them is trying to come out, one or two of them is bringing it back.
Mhm.
They will all get stuck in that basket. None of them will make it out.
Very
None of
true.
them will make it out. That's what is called crab mentality. And that's what is affecting us in our community. But the times are changing. Most of the new generation of immigrants are beginning to collaborate and helping the community to grow. So the kind of mentality that we should have is the collaborating mentality. You want to
Ex-
work together so that we can achieve our goal at the same time.
Mhm.
When it comes to service, we also need to be more service oriented. And what I mean is, as a business owner, you must recognize the fact that the fundamental of your business is to get a paying customer.
Period.
That's the fundamental business of any business. You need
Fact.
to get a paying customer. And every time you have a new customer, treat the customer so well that the customer will want to come back. When the customer comes back, treat that same customer much better that is going to refer his family or friends to you.
Yes.
Now, a lot of business owners miss this. And what they don't understand is it's very expensive to acquire a new customer.
That's true. Than keeping an old one.
Yes. So if you are lucky enough to find a customer and the customer comes to you, pays you for the service, you should, for lack of better word, you should adore that customer
Fact. Fact.
so that you don't even
Fact.
want the customer to have an opportunity to check somewhere else.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So the
I,
customer, okay.
Yes, Paul, and I think I really appreciate you talking about that aspect of customer service, the ability to understand number one, that it is cheaper to keep an existing customer than to acquire a new customer. That's why, for example, I remember many years ago when I used to have cable TV. I don't have cable TV anymore the last 7 years. I
Hmm.
watch podcasts and things like that. And I was with a company called Dish Network. Now, Dish Network, I was with them for about 14 years or 15 years. And every time I threatened to leave, even before I threatened to leave, they will always be sending me new coupons. Oh, get 2 months off. We're just giving you 1 month free. Then when I threatened to leave, they will get some top person to call me, to talk to me, to convince me not to leave their company. And I never used to understand why. It's
Why?
when I started getting into marketing, sales, online sales, all the things I do, that I realized that they understand that it is cheaper for them to give me some benefits than to go acquire a new customer, because customer acquisition is very expensive.
Yeah.
But talking about customer service, I think it's important that our viewers understand a real life example of this. This is the second go around Paul and myself are doing for the podcast you're watching right now. We did the first one earlier this month, and I got my team to prepare the podcast, edited it, clean it up, put everything they need to do, and the podcast was ready to publish last week. No, this week on Tuesday. And when I watched the finished product, I told my team, no, we are not publishing this podcast. The volume was not right.
Hmm.
The audio wasn't right. And I said, this is going to be a disservice, not only to me, but most importantly to my guest, who is like my customer. Because for
Hmm.
Paul to come on my platform, he is my customer. That's how I look at it. And he is taking his time to come and serve my viewers, to come and serve you who watch my platform. So he is a customer to me. And I said, no, this is going to be a disservice to my customer, because Paul has a brand out there. And when somebody watches that podcast and sees that the audio is not good, the person will be judging our brands based on a bad audio on a podcast. And I told
Wow.
my team, we are not publishing that. Find something else, fill that space with it, get something else quick and fill it. And they were able to fill it with another podcast. But just this is to accentuate the importance of customer service. Now, Paul, a lot of immigrants, no secret, you and me know. A lot of immigrants struggle. A lot of immigrants come into America, into Canada, with this mindset of survival. And they tend to live that way mostly through their lives. And by the time they start thinking of changing that mindset, maybe they're in their 40s, 50s, and at that point, it's starting to look not too good. They're running behind on their retirement. Money is not really enough. At the end of the month, there is more month beyond the check, right? Can you tell me what are some of the things they can do to be able to shift from that mindset of survival, from the practice of survival to thriving? And what are some of the concrete steps they can take?
Yeah, very good one. And thank you for talking about the podcast. And I really appreciate, I admire your sense of excellence and
Yes,
try to just keep up with the pace and the excellence that you've exposed your viewers to. That's very commendable. So to
thank
your
you.
question, and it's interesting that you are asking about the mindset because that's where everything starts from. And I don't blame immigrants who come here and continue with that survival mindset, especially when you are coming from a place where you've experienced so many scarcity. It requires intentionality for you to
Yes,
really understand that, you know what, I'm now in a better place. I need to unlearn some things, relearn, and explore this place of abundance that I found myself.
correct.
Because one of the worst things that can happen to you as human is to find yourself in the place of abundance, but with a scarcity mindset.
Fact.
It's just going to be frustrating. No matter how much abundance you have access to, you won't be able to tap into that abundance. So the
Fact.
first thing we need to work on, or if you are listening to me right now and you are a new immigrant or you are planning to migrate, know that you are coming to a country where you need to work on your mindset. The
Correct.
fact that you've struggled all your life doesn't mean you must continue struggling. You need to first of all work on your mindset. If you've gone through some trauma in the past, you may need to seek healing
Yes.
so you can open your mind for beautiful things that are coming for you.
Correct.
So mindset is important. Then the next thing will be education.
Mm-hmm.
Education doesn't mean going to school. Education just means finding access to the right knowledge, take it and use it.
True.
Finding access to the right knowledge, take it and maximize it. So education can be financial education and can be personal development. In fact, I'm going to recommend personal development first
Yes.
before upskilling. Develop yourself, read books, and network strategically. One of the two biggest investments you can do for yourself is self improvement and investing in relationships.
Yes.
So, as you land in the country, network, and you can even use, thank God for social media, you can go online and follow people that look like you,
Mm-hmm.
that you think they're doing something amazing that you would like to learn from. And I've learned that successful people, they are open to guide people. But the problem is we feel like they will not open up to you, so you won't be able to ask them.
Mm-hmm.
When you
There's
find
that
people,
sense of there's that sense that there's that complex,
that
that sense of
complex
inadequacy.
inadequacy that
Mm-hmm.
prevents you from asking questions. And if you are able to start following these people, connecting with them online, just ask questions, you will be shocked at how one response can change the trajectory of your life. So
Absolutely.
invest in yourself, invest in relationships, and invest in financial education.
By the way, good people, thank you, Paul. And by the way, good people, Paul talks about investing in relationships and having access to people who can pour into your life, right? On this platform, on the YouREnough platform with your host here, Gustav B. Achu, one of the things we do is that we do bi-monthly seminars. And in these seminars, we usually talk about different topics. On the 31st of May, we are going to have a seminar titled From Paycheck to Prosperity. For most people, your number one source of income is going to be your paycheck. But your paycheck should be a seed and it should not be a fruit to eat. It should be a seed to plant for multiplication. In that seminar, Paycheck to Prosperity, we are going to be teaching you, especially people who are coming into America, into Canada, into different parts of the world, how to maximize the paycheck you make and be able to build from that to become very successful, become millionaires, build a life of meaning, and build a lasting legacy. In addition to that, in the description of this podcast video, for sure, if you're watching on YouTube, you will see a link to register for that seminar. But there is also an additional link where you can register to join our exclusive newsletter group. And in this newsletter group, we bring specific and private information that we don't share on social media. In that community, we also bring people like Paul, people who've done things, who know things, where you can have access to them, where in normal life to have access to them would have costed you a lot more money. So join that. Now, Paul, let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay. And I love that webinar coming up. I love the title, From Paycheck to
From
Prosperity.
paycheck to prosperity, yes. Because
Yeah.
most of us are looking for prosperity. Most of us want to prosper abundantly. You host the Thriving Immigrant
Mm,
podcast. That's exactly some of the things you talk about, right? We
yeah.
want to prosper, but a lot of people don't realize, especially in this time and age, when the conversation, especially on social media, is mostly like you can only be successful if you're an entrepreneur. You can only become a millionaire if you own a business of your own. But not everyone is cut out for a business. Not everyone is cut
Absolutely.
out to be an entrepreneur. And talking about entrepreneurship, Paul, that's something you do very well. You have multiple businesses. You run a podcast which is building up to something. You have an Instagram following of over 10,000 people. You're helping people, teach them different things. What are some of the concrete steps you can give to an immigrant entrepreneur to expand their business beyond local markets into global markets. And this doesn't only apply to immigrant entrepreneurs, but even entrepreneurs back on the continent of Africa. How can they expose their businesses to the global markets?
Yeah. So, regardless of where you are, like I mentioned, we live in an amazing time.
Yes.
Opportunities have never been this democratized before.
Fact.
So, you want to leverage technology. And I'm going to start by saying that the first thing that you probably need to do is to even discover your purpose. You want to recognize your
Yes.
strength. When you are able to recognize your strength or your purpose, your job is now to make sure that you exploit it in the service of others. I'm going to say that again. Identify your strength and exploit it in the service of others. Now, in the process of exploiting it, we need to leverage technology,
Mhm.
because if you've got an amazing product that you are convinced that this product can change people's lives, then it's your responsibility to get across to as many people that you think their lives need to be changed.
Fact.
And no matter the kind of services that you provide or the product that you sell, I want to believe that if you if you know your purpose, you can tell that yes, this product can change lives, no matter how significant it is. So you will need to know how to sell as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. If in fact, as far I always tell business owners that I talk to, that I coach, that you are your national sales manager.
Simple. Until a
Your
time when maybe you build the enterprise to a size where you can hire one.
Where you can hire one. So you are the first sales manager. And it even goes beyond selling your products. You are going to be selling dreams to people to work for you. How do you convince people to work for you without selling skills? How do you attract investors without selling skills? So if you don't know how to sell, you can go online and take courses on how to sell. There are so many resources right now. You can even subscribe to some YouTube channels and learn how to sell. You can go on LinkedIn and use LinkedIn Learning to access selling courses. You can go on Coursera, you can go on Udemy. What an amazing time to be alive.
It is.
You can take a complete MBA from your basement or from anywhere. So you need to upskill yourself, learn how to sell, and and see if your product needs to go beyond your local church. And what do I mean? Let's say you have a service. For example, for people listening to me in Africa, you can be making dollars from Africa, because people here, like consultants, they need virtual assistants, they need personal assistants, they need people to edit their videos, they need people to do digital marketing for them. So you can be a solopreneur and offer services to people regardless of where they are in the world and start
Mhm.
getting paid.
Mhm.
You can start creating content on LinkedIn, showing your skills and your services on LinkedIn. Target consultants so they can hire you and give you money. The world is now in a place where, as long as you have value to deliver and people know what you are offering, they will definitely come and pay you for that service. So,
Very true.
for someone who is a business owner or maybe a self-employed person, and you have services that you think that you can render beyond just your geographical area, you want to leverage internet, you want to leverage technology, you want to leverage social media. And there are a lot of AI tools that can even help you to do all those things.
Incredible, incredible, Paul. I think I support you in the fact that we live in an incredible time. We live in the
Yeah.
best time the world has ever seen. But that this good time also brings a big challenge. I was
Hmm.
listening to a podcast this morning by a master martial artist, and he was on the Diary of the CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett.
Right.
And he was talking that one of the biggest challenges in the time we live, despite all the opportunity, is that there are too many options. right? People are overflooded with information, with gurus, with options, with this, with that. How do you decide as a person who to watch, who to follow, and who to believe in?
Beautiful. So I agree with you completely. It's an overwhelming time because of access to information. When we were growing up, first of all, TV stations would only come up, I think, 4 p.m. or 5 p.m.
And at some point, we're going to get back to that time if the world has to go back to be sane. It's too much.
It's too much. So then, and the shows that we would see then were some morally sound shows just
Yes.
to maybe teach kids about life and some morals. So we do that for like 1 hour, then maybe news, and maybe by 10 p.m., latest 11 p.m., they are done. No more TV, no more TV station working. It's between 5 and 10 p.m. But right now, if you want to stay glued to the TV for 24 hours, there are a lot of stations to watch.
Mhm.
Now we have YouTube, we have Instagram. And if you look at the way they've designed these social media tools, you cannot complete scrolling. You just keep scrolling, it
Yes.
never ends.
Yes.
They are being deliberate about that model.
Fact.
So it's true that we can be overwhelmed, but that's where discipline comes in. As a business owner, you want to be very disciplined. You want to know where to be, at what time, and you can even outsource some of these activities.
Mhm.
There's a point where you build your business to where you will not have to be handling social media activities anymore.
Absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
example,
Mhm.
the diary of a CEO that you see on Instagram, I'm sure it wasn't Steve. It's not Steve that does the posting.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. So, but what I really want to understand too is, Paul, how do you make that decision for who to go learn from who to follow, and from who to believe in on social media, especially because these people are virtual. You don't know them personally. How do you judge so that somebody who is watching us on this show
right.
today can be able to get some guidelines on how to judge and determine who to follow, who to learn from, and who to believe in. Because as you and me know, social media today has changed a lot, but there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of lies. I was watching
Yeah.
a show the other day where this guy is a photographer in LA, and he came up with this concept where he built a photography and videography booth, which looks like the inside of a private jet. So
Mm.
people pay him per hour, go sit in the thing, act like they're getting into a jet, and they go sit down and they take them videos and they take them photos and they claim they're in private jets. And these same young people come now on social media and say, hey, how I made $20 million by the time I was 18. Listen, the average millionaire in America and Canada is about 50 years old. Let nobody
Absolutely.
bullshit you. Let nobody put pressure on you to start doing stupid things. No. But
Yeah.
I'm not saying, of course, there are no the possibilities today to make money faster and younger is
Is
higher.
there.
Nobody
Right.
denies. But in that process, it's not the normal yet. It's an anomaly. It's still a minority of people under 20 or a little above 20 that make millions of dollars. It doesn't mean you can't do it, but I just saying, if somebody is watching today, how do they determine who to believe, who to follow, and who to make their mentors virtually?
Yeah. So it's tricky because, to be honest, social media lives, like you mentioned, it may not be completely accurate. You may not get the complete truth. But the first thing you would like to do, or I will encourage anyone to do, is you need to first of all list your core values. What are your core
Mhm,
values?
mhm.
So, because the thing about core values is this: when you are able to identify your core values, is it can be magnetic. When you
Yes.
find someone with that same core values, you guys will easily connect.
Fact.
You will just find yourself, because sometimes I'm sure you'll be like, you must have had some interaction with people are like, for some reason we just spoke and we just
Mhm.
connected,
Fact. Just like you and me.
just the way we are connecting.
Yes.
So
Had to
identify
know
your
that we met for the first time a month ago.
interesting. So
Correct.
identify your core values, list them down. You will know your core values if you sit down and start listing it. Maybe you are big on integrity. Maybe you are big on respect. You are big on giving value to people. those are the things you want to list as core values. So the people you want to follow, you want to ensure that they believe in the things you believe in. Now that doesn't mean that they are perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but as long as the content they share inspires you, gives you positive energy, you probably don't need to worry about what's going on at the background. Just
Mm-hmm.
take what you think is helpful for you and use it and move on with your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you don't need to follow so many people. Just follow people doing the things that you want to do. It can be five, it can be six, it can be seven, it can be 10. Interestingly, by the time you start following those people, you will come across other people in their circle that you will also realize that, oh,
That's
I think
powerful.
we share a lot of things together. Then you start following them too. That's the
Correct.
way the algorithm works. On my Instagram, and how do you know if you are following the right people? If you go on Instagram, if you go to your search button, the
Mm-hmm.
kind of content that comes to you tells you the kind of person that you are.
So when you go to the search
Search
button,
button of
the little
Instagram,
thing that looks like a lens, you click
yes,
on it, even
you click
without
it
typing anything,
without
it will
typing
give you some
anything.
suggestions.
Exactly.
So just suggested people are the people that the algorithm has determined that the kind of information that you've been
Information
looking for.
that you've been looking for.
Wow.
So if you go on your Instagram and you see people jumping up and down, maybe you've been watching so much fun
Dancing
content,
and
dancing.
fluff. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go to on your Instagram and you go on the search button and you start getting messages like inspirational messages or motivational messages,
Mm-hmm.
it just shows that that's the kind of things that you've been looking for that probably aligns with your core values.
Paul, you just said something here, and I want to try this. Guys, let me look first. I might not show you my screen immediately. Oh, yes, you're right. You are so right. Because when I do that, exactly. And I've been looking, I see Paul Adeyeye here. I see Pastor Ade Farasin. I see Joshua
Okay.
Selman. I see Les Brown. I see, okay, you are so right. I'm seeing here, I just did that, and I'm looking at a lot of people that I follow. Elvis Thomas, and a lot, Eric Thomas, sorry, and a lot of the people that I follow. That is very powerful. Now, Paul, I think one of the big challenges that presents itself today in our times. I was listening the other day on news and they were talking about globalization and the fact that the people who were intended to benefit from globalization has not benefited from globalization.
Hmm.
That only about 30% of the world has benefited from globalization. But now we live today in a time when we have all these tools, right? And life has evolved to the point where in the early 1900s, it was the agrarian economy. It left from the agrarian economy to the manufacturing economy, right? Where they
Yeah.
started making cars and things like that for mass production. It left from that, and in the 50s, starting to come, we moved on to the oil economy, where oil now was the hot thing. Who has oil starts making money. That's when countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and all those countries started really building from 1960s and and all the way to the 80s, right? In the 90s and 2000s, it was now the technological explosion of the world.
Hmm.
That's when you started seeing all the technology companies come to life. AWS, Microsoft, some of these companies really started becoming big, even though they started in the 70s, right? And then from 2000 and the 2010s now and moving up, it's now the internet age,
Right.
the virtual age, where the most important product is attention, where
Hmm.
the most important resource you can go for is attention. Because when people give you their attention, they're going to give you their money eventually. Now, there's a big challenge in not only the immigrant communities, but the Black community in general, right? Over 90% of Black businesses in America, and I want to believe it might be the same in Canada, over 90% of Black businesses in America are one-person businesses, which
Hmm.
mean are not really corporations, are not big businesses that employ people. Why do you think that is the case, and how do you think that can be resolved? Because when you look at the economic landscape of this great nation of America and Canada and other countries, the people that have the greatest influence are the people that own the biggest businesses. Period.
Yeah.
Period. So how can we reverse that?
Yeah, and that's a very scary statistics, and thank you for mentioning that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't have the data, but I would think it's a mindset thing.
Mm-hmm.
So mindset is very important. The typical immigrant or a typical black immigrant may think that let me just do my thing
Mm-hmm.
and see how much I can make on my own. But you don't grow that way. You
Correct.
don't grow like that. You
Very
have
true.
to you have to open your mind for great things. You have to be ready to explore new things, and you have to be willing to expand and open your business. Another thing that may be an issue is some people might have some fears of maybe if I grow, I make so much money, I will pay more in taxes. So that's where education comes in.
Mm-hmm.
People need to understand that if you are not incorporating your business, you are limiting your options. You are leaving
Right.
a lot of opportunities on the table. For example, if you look at what's going on in the world right now, every country is picking themselves first.
Fact.
America will say America first. Canada
China
will say
first,
Canada
Japan first.
first. That's it. Now, when the world goes through some economical challenges, one of the best ways to revive the economy is to support small businesses. Now, a lot of opportunities, maybe grants, loans will be made available for businesses, but businesses that are not registered may not be eligible. So,
Mm-hmm.
people, when you have a business, you want to register your business. If you are incorporated, what you are telling the government is this. First of all, when you own a business, you are telling the government that I'm going to employ myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to understand that it's the responsibility of the government to provide jobs.
Correct.
Now, what you are doing, Gustav, is you are saying, government, don't worry about me. I will give myself my job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you already have a business. If you continue to grow your business, you have a chance to employ people.
Mm-hmm.
Now you are telling the government, I'm not only going to employ myself, I'm also going to help you to employ more people.
Mm-hmm.
By doing that, you are able to empower people. Do you know what that means? Somebody is able to feed himself and his family just because you started your business. If you are listening to me right now and you know that your business is a business that can scale, there is nothing stopping you from scaling it. One of the best ways to build lasting legacy and keep money in our community is to build businesses,
Fact.
that will outlive us. And that's one of the quotes. Is not a quote. Is a law. Is the law of time, principle of time. I can't remember how that is stated. The law states that the most successful people in the society are the people who consider the longest time duration when making decisions.
Yes.
The law
Fact.
of time perspective. Yeah, that's the law. The
Yes.
law of time perspective. So when Steve Jobs started Apple, he wasn't just looking for an opportunity that will take care of five people. He was creating an opportunity that will outlive him. So we black people, we need to start thinking about the
Long
future.
term.
We need to start applying the law of time perspective so that we can know that if you're lucky enough, you spend 80 years on this planet. After 80 years, what happens? But if you can build a business, in fact, this may not sound well, but one of the ways to establish your children is by building a good business.
Fact.
Because
Fact.
we complain every time that, well, I submitted 10 resumes, I submitted 100 resumes, nobody is giving me job, nobody's giving me an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
If I start a business and I grow it well, and maybe my child goes to school as an MBA, there's nothing stopping me from letting him become a CEO at 25 or at 26.
Fact. A lot of people do that. A
A
lot
lot
of
of people do
businesses are
that.
family businesses before they move to become public businesses, right?
Exactly.
A lot of companies are private companies and then they decide to go public, but they
Yeah.
get all of this set up. You are so right, Paul. You're so right. And tell me a little bit, what does collaboration and the ability to invest together. What role does that play? The reason I ask this question is because I had a complete paradigm shift about 12 years ago.
Hmm.
It was a moment of total clarity for me. At that point, Jeff Bezos was the richest man in the world for many years, the former chairman and CEO and founder of Amazon.
Right.
And at the point where he was the richest man of the world for many years, I realized Jeff Bezos only owned 11% of Amazon.
Hmm.
And then you fast forward a few years later, Elon Musk, who has also been the richest man in the world, I realized that he only owns under 20% of Tesla, maybe 21% or something. What did this tell me? It told me that, Gustav, you know what? It is better to have a small slice of a big cake than to have an entire small cake to yourself. So, what that also told me is that the only way a community of people can build significant influence is when they're able to bring their resources, which means their intelligence, their different skill sets, their varied inspiration to build something that is big enough for everybody to have a piece. And that small piece, because of the size of the cake, will really be a big piece.
Absolutely.
Because
You are
think
so
about it
spot
this
on.
way, for the Jeff Bezos of this world who founded the Amazons, and the Elon Musk. For each Jeff Bezos, there are over 400, there are probably 20 billionaires he created who invested in that company early. And there
Hmm.
are another maybe 500 millionaires who have been created because they were the first employees of the company. They had stock options, or maybe they invested a small 5,000 here or 10,000 there at the beginning, right? And as Black people, as African immigrants, especially on this side of the world, because I do a lot of investments with private Africans who have ideas. When they come to me, if I have money, I put the money. I don't care whether it gets lost or not, because that is how we can do it. What do you think we need to do to break that barrier of lack of trust, of lack of collaboration, and be able to start investing in each other and with
Yeah.
each other?
Right. Right. Spot on. And I love that narration that you just explained. It's a mind shifting one. To be honest, you are really spot on. And I think the first thing is we need to study how other people build wealth and learn from them. There's nothing wrong in learning from anyone as long as they're getting results.
Mhm,
And we need to shift our mindset. We need a mindset shift. We need to understand that there's our days are numbered.
mhm,
And because our days are numbered, we have to be responsible to build something that can take care of people coming behind. We want to make the journey easier for the people coming behind.
mhm.
And we need to collaborate to do that together. Because there's a saying that if you want to move fast, you move alone. But if you want to move
Go
far,
far,
you
you go
move
with
with people.
others.
You go
Yes.
with others. So when it comes to investing, there's something that is important I talk about is compound interest.
Yeah.
Compound interest is like a magic, and that's why Albert Einstein said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world.
Fact.
People who know it, they make money, they earn from it. Those who don't know it, they pay for it. Now let's look at an example. Paul has $100,000 to invest in a company
Hmm.
or in real estate. And Gustav also has $100,000 to invest. Now, the company allows you to invest as much as you have.
Hmm.
Imagine we have 20 people bring $100,000. That's $2 million. Invest in the company. Even if that company gives 10% return, the return on $2 million cannot be the same as return on $100,000.
Hmm.
Now, if that return comes to you and you invest both the capital and the
Return.
gain, it will compound again And in 10 years, you will be shocked at how much you would have made in that community
Mm-hmm.
by just investing alone, by investing as a group than investing
Mm-hmm.
alone. So we need to change our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really blame people because some people have had some bad experiences by
Mm-hmm.
working with people. So it might be tough for some people to
Mm-hmm.
trust.
Sure. Sure,
Yeah,
but
but
it's a work in progress, right? And I really believe
absolutely.
that as a people, we must learn to go past that. Because to me, it is important to have 1% of 100 brains than to have
Yeah,
100% of one brain. I'm not
absolutely.
interested. I don't do business alone. I don't like to do business alone. And the reason why is because I believe that when you do business alone, you are only using what you know. And what you know is very limited.
It's very
You
limited.
don't, I've been talking to you here and making notes. Why am I doing that? Because I'm learning. This is the
Mm,
greatest learning experience of my life, having intelligent people like you come on my platform and share their knowledge. It's very powerful because I learn from that, right? And as African immigrants, especially, if our goal is to build ourselves, to grow as individuals, to find our purpose, to live our purpose, and to be able to invest in assets and on the stock market and to build a legacy, then we must understand that that process involves losses. That
mm,
process involves some bad deals. That process involves some bad people. But you talked about compounding because the one, two, three good ones that are going to work will make up for the 20 that were bad,
absolutely.
right? And that is where I really believe the power lies. Paul, what is your own personal investment portfolio like? I don't want you to give me specific numbers. What are the
Yeah.
things you invest in?
Yes. So I invest in real estate.
Okay,
I invest in the stock market,
awesome.
and I'm also big on personal investment. So I invest in
Correct.
myself.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. That's amazing. And the reason why I asked that is because these are some of the things I talk a lot on this platform, right?
Mm.
Investing in self, investing on the stock market, investing in assets like real estate. And why did you choose to invest in those portfolios?
Yeah. The first thing is diversification. It's
Mhm,
important to diversify your portfolio. And let's talk about the stock market for like two
mhm,
minutes. For example, there's something called S&P 500.
mhm,
With technology, you can download an app,
mhm,
regardless of where you live. Even those living in Africa, there are apps that you can download, and you can be investing as low as maybe $50 or $100 every month into
mhm,
S&P 500.
mhm.
Every time you invest in S&P 500, what you are doing is you are investing in top 500 companies in the US.
Yeah.
So, for example, Paul, as an individual, cannot ordinarily own a stock in Amazon. I can't just walk into Tesla and say I want to buy Tesla shares. But because I invest in S&P 500, I have a fraction
Mhm,
of Tesla, of Google, of Microsoft,
mhm,
as long as those companies are in the top
mhm,
100 of US
mhm,
stocks. Every time you
mhm.
invest in S&P, you have them. So I do that because it minimizes the risk for
Correct.
me. All
Correct.
those companies cannot crash at the same time.
Fact.
And for people living in the US and Canada, you also need to understand that there's something called capital gain tax. Every time you invest in something, you may need to pay taxes on the gains. That's why you want to use what they call registered accounts. For people living in Canada, is called tax-free savings account. I
Mhm,
think in the US is called there's 401k for retirement,
mhm,
and there is where you can invest in, and your gains will not be taxed.
mhm. Okay, that's a lot.
That's
Yeah.
Roth. Yes,
Yes.
that's Roth.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think they
That's
call it
all.
Roth IRA or something.
Something correct. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. But there's certainly a lot of nuances to that for sure. But we're not going to talk about that on the show today, just for reasons of
right.
time. And you make a very powerful point because what a lot of people don't really realize is yes, you can certainly, if you chose, you can go buy individual shares of Amazon, Tesla, and all of that. But the cost of it makes it it makes it such a way that you might not be able to buy as many as you like to. Number one,
Yeah.
and it is more risky for you because you are betting on individual companies. But when you bet on something like the S&P 500, you are betting on 500 companies of the
Companies.
top 500 in America. And what that really means is that they cannot all get down at the same time. The people, for
Absolutely.
example, who invested in the S&P 500 during these last few months of economic turmoil in America, if you go look, the S&P 500 most likely has suffered a little less damage than individual companies like Tesla
Tesla.
and Amazon and companies like that. So you make a good point. Paul, what does purpose mean to you?
Hmm. To me, purpose means everything. That's the reason why we are here. And everyone, I believe that, I strongly believe that everyone, we all have the same purpose. And I'm going to speak to that. Our purpose
Yeah,
is to
I
set,
need you to unpack that because I'm thinking we all cannot have the same purpose.
we have the same purpose. Our purpose is to serve God and humanity.
Okay, okay, I got you now.
Yeah. And how to do that now differs. That's where you need to identify your own purpose.
Hmm.
So you've identified your purpose and are using it to serve humanity and God. And the
Hmm.
beautiful thing is, once you discover that, you are going to attract wealth to yourself.
Fact.
You will attract so much wealth that even if you don't want to be wealthy, it will be too late. But people struggle in identifying their purpose. Some people don't even know how to identify it. And I'm going to speak briefly on that. To identify your purpose, first of all, I believe in God. I'm a Christian. You may need to do some personal prayers for God's guidance.
Hmm.
And you also need to do some self analysis because most times your purpose is just there for you to just see. It's there,
Hmm.
but for some reasons you're unable to identify it.
Hmm.
Reasons like it comes to you naturally.
Hmm.
You feel like you must go through some difficulties to identify it. No,
Hmm.
because everyone has a superpower.
Fact.
And your superpower, you may not really recognize it because it's very easy for you to do. It's like
Correct.
this quote from this is even anonymous. So the quote is saying that everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to live its whole life feeling stupid.
Yes.
So
Very
a
true.
fish cannot climb a tree, but put a fish in a river, is going
And you see
to,
it's genius.
you see that
Yeah.
is a genius. So
Yeah.
you have your own purpose. You can identify your purpose by praying to God or
Hmm.
by talking to people around you.
Hmm.
So you can reach out to like three close people, three very
Hmm.
close people, and ask them questions like, is there any time where you think about me when you are struggling with something? And they can say, oh, yeah. Whenever I need to speak to someone, whenever I need positive energy, you are the first
Hmm.
person I call. That's most likely your purpose.
Hmm.
Or maybe when I need someone to help me with my kids, I know that
Hmm.
my kids are safe with you. You are the first person I think about. That's something you are passionate about. It's not left to you to use your passion and use it to empower the world and use it to
Hmm.
serve humanity. So
Wow.
everyone will need to discover their purpose. When you discover your purpose, you exploit it in a way to serve others, then you've opened floodgates of wealth to yourself.
That's just a very, very powerful way to define purpose and to look at it. What plans for the next 10 years for you?
10 years is a long time, at the same time, is a short time.
Fact.
So for me, I live every day like my first, and I also live it like my last. So what that means is I want to make sure that whenever it happens, I want to ensure that I maximize my potential. So it's important to die empty in this part of the world. And you don't really know when it's going to happen.
Correct.
That's why you must live fully and die empty. So I can't
Correct.
tell you what the plans are for the next 10 years. It's both a long time and a short time. But every day I wake up full of gratitude with expectation to do so much to improve lives of people around me.
Awesome. That's very awesome. Paul, I think we're certainly coming down to the hour plus mark, but where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me everywhere. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn. Name is Paul Adeyeye. You can find me on Twitter, X, and on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, the Thriving Immigrant Podcast, where I'm hoping to host Gustav one of these days.
Absolutely. It will be beautiful. We are certainly going to have a wonderful time.
Right.
Mm. Awesome, awesome, Paul. And one other thing, I want to ask you this because I think I was just thinking about it. Probably down the line, I would love to have you back again to talk just specifically around Instagram and LinkedIn business and market. How can people leverage Instagram, leverage LinkedIn, think about it as a platform for business, and how can they
Yeah.
use that for their businesses or as a business? Because
Yeah.
there are some people who don't need a separate business. LinkedIn is their business, Instagram is
Absolutely.
their business, and you are one of those who really have expertise around that. And please, I'll have you for another podcast just to talk exclusively on that, if
That
that's
will be
going to be okay. But for sure, I promise I'm going to be on your podcast pretty soon. So any final words?
well. Thank you for having me, Gustav. For everyone listening to me right now, I would say to you that you are enough. And my last word would be identify your strength,
Yes.
find find your strength, maximize it, and leverage the internet to exploit that strength in serving others.
Yes.
Identify your strength, maximize it, and make sure you exploit it in serving others. Thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you for having me, Gustav. It's been an amazing
Absolutely,
time.
Paul. Absolutely. I'm very, very excited. And to you, all our viewers who were able to stay to the end of this podcast, I want you to give me just 2 minutes because I want to talk to you. I want to go past your mind and I want to speak directly to your heart because you know, every human being in your heart, that is where lies your true desire. That is where all the dreams, the ambitions, and the things that you aspire for in your life resides. And I want to tell you something. I might not know you personally. I might never have a chance to meet you in this life in real time and as a person and physically. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity that the technology has given us to communion as one. But I want to remind you that yes, you might have been through circumstances in your lives that have boosted you. You might have been through circumstances that are less than normal. You might have been hurt by things that have happened in your history. You might have even have people speak death upon your life, speak lack upon your life, speak inability. But I want to remind you that despite all of that, that you are smart enough, you are intelligent enough, you are courageous enough, you are capable enough, and you are born able enough to do something special with your life, to do something unique, to find that voice that speaks to you and speaks only to you, to listen to that gut and go out and excel on your purpose. And until the next time, be well, be blessed, and by all means, never stop being a blessing to somebody. And as usual, I will see you at the top.